Mr. President, Sue Lanto is an advocate for victims of domestic violence. She often visits a local courthouse in suburban Minneapolis to help her clients obtain protective orders. Last month, she wrote an editorial in which she acknowledged that, quote, most of us who work at the courthouse have had moments when we were frightened because cases sometimes become volatile. Patricia Buss handles family court matters in Dakota County, Minnesota. She says that, quote, she, quote, personally thinks of the risks every time she walks into the courthouses. And John Baker is an attorney in Maplewood, Minnesota. He is also a retired Marine. He concurs with Sue and Patricia. Says, I am not saying that we need to create fortresses in our courthouses, but basic security screening and training can go a long way. That is not being done. The local courthouse is a workplace for many people, for secretaries, custodians, and clerks who clock in and clock out every day. It's also where justice is administered. It's where we report for jury duty and fight traffic tickets. It's where adoptions are processed, divorces are finalized, and misdemeanors are adjudicated. But as Sue, Patricia, and John explain, local courthouses can be dangerous places. Stakes are high, tempers flare, victims confront their assailants, defendants confront their accusers, prosecutors argue with defense lawyers. A rash of incidents in late 2011 raised concerns about security at local courthouses, especially in rural and suburban communities. In September, a defendant opened fire in the Crawford County Courthouse in Arkansas, shooting a judge's secretary. Authorities reported that the gunman entered the courthouse unopposed, wearing tactical gear, armed with semi-automatic weapons. A local newspaper later noted that the shooting, quote, highlighted the vulnerability of the state's many small rural courthouses where the guards, armed police, and metal detectors common in large cities are often too expensive. 2 days later, there was a shooting in the Adams County Superior Court in Indiana. According to media accounts, that courthouse did not have a metal detector either. The local judge observed that there were, quote, a lot of security problems here that need to be corrected, and that the shooting really drove home the point that things need to change. Then in December, defendant retrieved a gun from his car and walked into the Cook County Courthouse in Grand Marais, Minnesota. The courthouse did not have a metal detector, and the gunman was not screened. He shot and wounded the prosecuting attorney and a witness. The bailiff also was injured during the encounter. After the shooting, a Minnesota judge wrote to his colleagues expressing concerns about courthouse security. He put the issue very well. He said, quote, I'm no longer willing to risk my life, the life of court staff, the life of the public, who have no choice about going to court. He said he was worried about being carried out in a body bag. These are not isolated incidents. The Center for Judicial and Executive Security in St. Paul tracks court-targeted acts of violence across the nation. It estimates that there were 23 such incidents at local courthouses in 2010 and 2011, or about one per month. And this isn't the first time we've confronted this issue in Minnesota. A few years ago, a man took hostages at the courthouse in Morrison County. After the shooting in Grand Marais in December, a local sheriff recalled that, quote, there were a lot of heroes who really averted something much more serious. I'm grateful for those heroes. Minnesota's sheriffs and law enforcement personnel across our nation are among them. These brave men and women have many duties, including the daunting task of keeping our local courthouses safe. In fact, the National Sheriff's Association sent me a letter last week. I think it's worth noting, Mr. President, so let me read it. Quote, sheriffs are typically responsible for the safety and security of the local courthouses in their counties, along with performing traditional law enforcement duties and operating the local jails. Sadly, in recent years, there has been a spike in violent incidents in courthouses across the country. This violence places law enforcement, judicial personnel, and the general public in harm's way. As such, it is imperative that sheriffs have the resources, particularly in rural areas where resources are extremely limited, to ensure courthouses have the appropriate equipment and tools necessary to improve security, enabling for the protection of courthouses throughout the United States. Our sheriffs need support, and we should not wait for the next courthouse shooting before we give it to them. That's why today I am introducing the bipartisan Local Courthouse Safety Act. It does three simple, common sense things. First, the bill cuts through bureaucratic red tape, giving local courts direct access to security equipment that federal agencies no longer are using. This provision is modeled after a Defense Department program that allows the Pentagon to give its excess equipment to local police and firefighters. The Local Courthouse Safety Act would do the same thing for local courts. It would give them direct access to the federal government's excess metal detectors, wands, and baggage screening machines. Second, the Local Courthouse Safety Act gives states the flexibility they need to make investments in courthouse security. It clarifies that states may use their Byrne Justice Assistance Grants, the Byrne JAG grants, and state Homeland Security grants to improve safety at local courthouses. The bill does not require any new spending, and it does not impose any new mandates on anyone. It simply says that states can use existing federal resources for courthouse security upgrades if they so choose. Finally, the Local Courthouse Safety Act provides statutory authorization for the Justice Department's VALOR initiative, which provides training and technical assistance to local law enforcement officers, teaching them how to anticipate and survive violent encounters. Mr. President, this is a bipartisan issue, and this should be legislation we can pass even in this divided Congress. I'm proud to introduce this legislation with Senator Boozman, my Republican colleague from Arkansas, and a champion for law enforcement personnel in his state and across the country. I encourage my colleagues from both sides of the aisle to join Senator Boozman and me in advancing this bill. In doing so, they'll join a long list and growing list of groups that support it, including the National Sheriff's Association, the Conference of Chief Justices, and the Conference of State Court Administrators. Thank you, Mr. President, and I ask unanimous consent that the bill's text be included in the record.
Without objection, so ordered.